Flyweight banger incoming. UFC Vegas 98 is to be headlined by the #1 ranked Brandon Raw Dog Royval, looking to earn his way back to a second title shot opportunity against Alexandre Pantoja. Standing in his way is the 24-year-old 16-0 Tatsuro Taira, hailing from Japan, looking to improve to 7-0 in the UFC, get the biggest win of his career, and solidify himself as a true #1 contender in this men's flyweight division. Over the past 4 years, I think it's pretty safe to say that these two gentlemen right here are the most active fighters in this men's flyweight division, especially if you want to talk about ranked top 10 opponents, contenders if you will. For Brandon Royval, this is going to be his 10th walk to the UFC octagon, dating back to his debut that was on short notice in May of 2020. And for Tatsuro Taira, this will be his 7th walk since joining the promotion in May of 2022. And if you want to look at the careers of both of these guys, it is a tale of two different stories because quite literally from the get-go, Brandon Royval was launched right in against a ranked opponent. As I said, he came in on short notice in May of 2020. He did that against a former title challenger in ranked Tim Elliott, still ranked to this day 4.5 years later, and he gets a second round submission via arm triangle choke that set him immediately into the talks of being a true player in this 125-pound division, and he hasn't looked back. Quite literally every single opponent that he has faced outside of maybe one in Rogerio Bontorin, and I think back in January of 2022, maybe even he was a ranked opponent, but if he wasn't, outside of that, everyone he's faced has been a top 15, if not top 10, if not top 5 ranked fighter in this flyweight division. Brandon Royval did not have an easy road, and while I'm not saying Tatsuro Taira did, when we take a look at his career and how he got to this moment, it is way different. For Tatsuro, when he debuted 2.5 years ago in May of 2022, he faces Carlos Candelario, gets a victory, faces CJ Vergara, faces Jesus Aguilar, faces Edgar Chairez, all guys that are legit threats to someone as young as Tatsuro, who at the time would have been, 21, 22, 23 years old, but still not the level of competition that Brandon Royval has faced. And to this day, Tatsuro has only had one fight against a ranked opponent, and that was against Alex Perez this past June when he got a TKO in kind of one of the wackier finishes of 2024's year. It was a main event slot where he had him on his feet, Alex Perez that was, but Tatsuro was wrapped in the body triangle, and he tried to pull him down in a way in which we've never really seen before. It made Alex Perez have a very nasty knee injury that forced the TKO stoppage in round 2 of their fight. That was very competitive, very back and forth, had high stakes in this division because now you see Tatsuro is in a #1 contender fight. Had Alex Perez won, he would have put himself right back into that position as well, who is a former title challenger. For the 6-0 start that Tatsuro Taira has earned in the UFC, 4 of them are by way of finish, and to be this well-rounded and skilled and polished at such a young age, so new into this fight game, is unlike many that we've seen in this flyweight division. I think it's safe to say Tatsuro may just be the biggest prospect that the 125-pound weight class has ever seen inside of the UFC. 16-0, a perfect record, 12 finishes overall out of those 16, and hailing from Japan, an opportunity to become the first Japanese fighter to be a UFC champion in the organization's history. But it's not going to be easy for Tatsuro Taira to do that because not only will he have to beat Alexandre Pantoja, but he has to get to Alexandre Pantoja first, and it starts with Raw Dog Brandon Royval, who has quite literally faced the who's who of this division. I talked about the debut fight against Tim Elliott, but we're coming off of a title fight just last December against Alexandre Pantoja. Royval has won 4 of his last 5 fights, including former 2-time champion Brandon Morono, Matheus Nicolau, Matt Schnell, Kai Kara France. His losses, he has 3 in the UFC. 2 of them are to the very same man, Alexandre Pantoja, the other to Brandon Morono. Now, he's avenged one of those losses. Can he avenge the losses to Pantoja in a potential trilogy matchup? Time will tell. Raw Dog, one of the most electric, most fun to watch fighters in this division, a kill or be killed, always in a high octane action fight. His fight with Pantoja, albeit it was a unanimous decision for Pantoja, was very competitive and a very, very high-level fight back in December to cap off the year. We've seen Pantoja go on to defend his title one time in 2024 back in May when he had another very competitive fight with up-and-comer Steve Erceg. That was at UFC 301 in Brazil. And I talked about the well-roundedness that Tatsuro Taira possesses, really polished in all areas, definitely a grappler to his core and finds most of his success there, but he is no fish out of water when it comes to the striking exchanges. And for Royval, pretty much you can say the same exact thing. He is very dangerous on the ground, has a plethora of weapons in terms of submissions that he can put on his opponents. He does have 4 knockouts to his name. He's long, he's rangy for 125 pounds. This matchup, there's just no way that it can be a boring fight. Tatsuro has had some duller performances compared to Brandon Royval, but none that I would say are boring. He has showcased his dominance and skill set in all 6 of his UFC fights. And for Royval, again, kill or be killed. He will put it all on the line against any opponent possible. The biggest difference is the opponents that he's done that with are of a much higher caliber than that of which Tatsuro Taira has faced. So can Taira rise to the occasion at 24 years old in what will be his second UFC main event? None bigger than this right here, though. A true title eliminator. Win this and you're in, kid. And I feel okay calling him kid because I'm older than him. 24 years young, and he can put himself in the driver's seat to challenge one of the most dominant champions this division's seen over the last couple of years, and Alexandre Pantoja, who has not lost since 2020. In July of 2020, as a matter of fact, Pantoja has won 6 straight fights. So the storylines are there. For Tatsuro, it's the young up-and-comer that will continue to be undefeated, challenging the dominant Pantoja, or it's Brandon Royval beating the undefeated prospect and earning a shot at a trilogy and a rematch in terms of the title implications against Pantoja. Flyweights are one of the most fun weight classes in the UFC, yet they don't get the respect they deserve. But on this show, formerly the Below Average Joe's MMA show, now Verbal Sparring, we have always showed them the love here in this community, and that ball just keeps on rolling into this Saturday. UFC Vegas 98, something's got to give. Someone will be a new #1 contender. So please let me know in the comments below your predictions for this flyweight banger. What's it going to be? Who's going to get that shot at Pantoja? Will it be Raw Dog Royval making it 5 of his last 6 fights victorious? Or will it be Tatsuro Taira improving to 17-0 and 7-0 in the UFC, getting the biggest victory of his career and getting a shot to become a UFC champion? Give me your predictions and your bets for the main event in the comments below. And now that we are done with the UFC Vegas 98 discussion, let's just jump into the rest of this 13-fight card. No other real big storylines or what's at stake in terms of breakdowns here, but I do just want to give some shine to some fighters and some fun fights that could be entertaining this weekend. The co-main event is a middleweight matchup between veterans Brad Tavares and Junyong Park, one that is sure to be exciting for the fans. It's definitely going to be taking place on the feet for 15 minutes or less. I feel pretty confident in saying Chidi and Njokuani versus Gooden will not go the distance. It will be a violent finish there in the featured bout. A low-key fight in the men's lightweight division. Grant Dawson is back, looking to make it 2 straight victories since his first UFC loss to Bobby Green last October. He did beat Joe Selecki in June, now looks to right the ship and inch his way closer back into the lightweight rankings. That's going to be against Rafa Garcia, who's won 4 of his last 5 fights, including a decision over Clay Guida in his most recent bout. However, that was April of 2023, so a near 18-month-long layoff for Garcia here, and to welcome him back is Grant Dawson. That's a tough one. Daniel Rodriguez is taking on Alex Morono. That's a really, really fun fight in the welterweight division. Abdul, Razak, Alhassan, and Josh Fremd are fighting in the middleweight division. Another one where, similar to Njokuani versus Gooden, it's not going 15. Jonathan Pearce and Pat Sabatini, that is a very, very fun and intriguing matchup in the featherweight division. 2 guys that are very well suited in the grappling department. Will they cancel each other out? Will they strike for 15 minutes? That's a very good one. And honestly, I feel like the winner there is very close. They're on the outside looking in of the top 15 at 145. Themba Gorimbo is taking on Niko Price, the veteran versus the young up-and-comer. Let us not forget Themba is the gentleman who has the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's backing, bought him a house, got him out of living in the gym. A beautiful story there. If you haven't heard about it, feel free to look that up. So that's a big fight for Themba to continue his momentum. So not the deepest of cards, right? But it is an Apex fight night. We can't expect too much. And again, they got to save all the big stars for UFC Vegas 100. I believe that's going to be happening November 9th, I'm pretty sure. So the week before Madison Square Garden will be the biggest event in UFC history, UFC Vegas 100. So we're less than a month away now. But for now, we get this one, UFC Vegas 98. Say what you will about the card, but the main event deserves all of the eyeballs. It is a huge fight for the men's flyweight division. Brandon Royval, Tatsuro Taira. I already asked for your predictions for that main event. Give me your bets and thoughts on the rest of the card as well. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Every single week, I will go in depth of each card, the biggest storylines, what is at stake for the biggest fights and fighters for each card. I recap the most meaningful results every single week, and I give my thoughts and opinions on MMA news and fight announcements. Join the community on social media at Verbal Spar MMA on X, Instagram, and TikTok, and you can follow on your favorite audio listening platforms such as Spotify and Apple. Podcast episodes released there every Friday and Monday. Have a great weekend, enjoy the fights, and I will see you in the next video.